What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Same exact video as yesterday, wide receiver starts and sits. Although one thing, I've added in a little section here for like injuries or COVID situations, just to like remind ourselves who might not be playing. Some of these people who are questionable are like questionable, like they're going to be good to go, but there are a lot of people we need to go over as far as being out for like wide receivers and tight ends. I didn't include running backs or anything because that's irrelevant to this video. So we'll do all that in a second. First, of course, start things off as usual. Stat of the day. Yesterday's stat: what team scored the fewest points per game at home so far this season? It is we'll go back to this screen, Atlanta Falcons. Matthew Schellenberg first got that right on YouTube, at Birch1982 first on Twitter. Today's stat, you can see on the screen, over the last 4 weeks, not including the game that just happened last night, so through week 14, half PPR points per game. Leaders for wide receivers are Devonta Adams, Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, who is fourth. Okay, so again, same setup as yesterday. We're going to start off with this Browns game. No, I do not want to restart the computer. There we go. Okay, we'll start with this Browns game. This is probably the biggest one as far as COVID situations are concerned. One thing, there's been a change in the COVID guidelines, I guess, for moving forward. Now, if a player is vaccinated and they are not displaying symptoms, they can test out. So before, as soon as you were you test positive on Wednesday, right? You're just donezo for that week, right? You're not playing, and we'll see if you can come back the next week. If you test positive on Wednesday and you're vaccinated, and on Friday or Saturday you test negative and you don't have symptoms, you're good to go. So now some of these players that we see on these lists aren't necessarily out, but that just means you have to pay even more attention than we were before. Again, make sure you're following me on Twitter at NickSalikFFA. I'm tweeting all these things out or retweeting everything. But yeah, you just got to pay more attention because now it's not like, oh, he's on the list. Okay, he's gone. Who's his backup? Now people can actually come back in time. So we're going to have to watch all these situations. Obviously, I have no idea if someone's going to end up testing negative again later in the week. So I'll just give you everyone who's on the list right now. So in this game, fairly simple for the Raiders. You're only starting Hunter Renfrow. You're not starting Zay Jones or Bryan Edwards. Waller is out. Again, that's obviously going to continue making Hunter Renfrow a fantastic play. So just play him, no analysis needed there. For the Browns, right now their entire offense is out. Hunt is definitely out because it's not COVID for him, it's the injury. So he's out. Schwartz is out. I believe it's the concussion for Schwartz, but he's going to be out. Then we have Baker, Hooper, Landry, all very likely going to miss this game. Again on Saturday, Raiders, Browns on Saturday, Patriots, Colts on Saturday. The rest of them are Sunday. So those guys are probably out. So the most likely scenario that we have here is Donovan Peoples-Jones being the wide receiver one. I had the same take that I had earlier in the week when we first learned that Jarvis Landry was going to miss this game. I think he's talented. I think he can absolutely do well. But if, he's catching passes from potentially now the third string quarterback, it's not a great spot. They're projected to score just over 17 points. Fairly neutral matchup. The Raiders don't have some dominant defense, but when you're projected to score 17, not move the ball that much, I'm thinking this team is mostly just Nick Chubb and avoid everyone else, especially let's say Landry got activated. Now I really don't want Peoples-Jones as much. So a lot of moving parts in that one. I would just check the rankings because so many people could be in or out. But you could take a dart throw on Peoples-Jones because he is a talented player. He can hit deep. He can be used as an alpha. That's really it for that game, though. Let's move on to the Colts. We're going to have a 45. The other game was a 38-point total. You guys know that was low. 45-point total for Patriots at Colts. The Colts are 2.5-point home favorites. I believe that's the exact same line as yesterday. Strong defense, obviously, for the Patriots, third in pass defense DVOA, third in yards per pass attempt allowed. Colts, more neutral of a matchup. They have a stronger run defense than pass defense, but they're still a very quality team, a good defense, a well-coached defense, and they're coming off bye as well. So I think this is going to be a very, very hard-fought game, very close game. I don't think either team separates all that much. I have Pittman right now as wide receiver 25, 11.3 point half PPR projection. He's the only Colts pass catcher, really, because Jonathan Taylor's a must start. Pass catcher is the only one that I'm really considering. We're not going to the tight ends, and we're not going to any of these backup wide receivers. And even Pittman can be benched. If you're looking at this, you're looking at the rankings again, free, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. You're looking at this and you're saying, I already have 3 top 20 receivers. Do I have to bench one of them to still play Pittman? No, this is a very, very difficult matchup. I know they're home favorites, but it's a tough spot against New England. Pittman can absolutely put a dud up. Now, if he's your third best receiver, you need to start him. Your next best receiver is in like the 35 range. I think you can play him because the number one focus of New England is still going to be Jonathan Taylor, right? They're still going to sell out to try and stop him. It's still going to leave Pittman with a lot of single coverage. Can he beat that? Absolutely. So could Pittman go out there and have like 7 for 70 and a touchdown? Definitely, because again, they're going to sell out to stop Jonathan Taylor, not sell out to stop Pittman. So still a tough matchup. I still expect him to perform worse than average, but you can still play him. This is one I'd absolutely just go with the rankings on. Just see, is he your like third best in the rankings? If he is, play him. If not, bench him. That's just kind of, and I'm assuming you can start like 3 wide receivers. If you can only start 2, bump that to 2, just whatever it is. For the Patriots, I really don't love anyone. Myers is getting like good targets, but they don't come deep downfield. He's not featured in the red zone. Bourne gets featured in the red zone, but he has to get there on like 3 or 4 targets. That's not fantastic. So I think if you're in this 36-42 range, it is fine. The spot is not good enough. 21.5 point team total. Probably gonna run the ball a lot. If, let's just say, Damian Harris is out, right? Maybe they go a little bit more pass heavy, and that can be a benefit to Myers, to Bourne, especially maybe in the red zone. They lean on those guys a little bit more. But in general, I'm not in love with the Patriots pass catchers here. And so again, wide receiver 36 and 42 for Myers and Bourne. But I'm really not in love with going there. Football team at the Eagles. Up next, 43 point total, so lower total. 9.5 point home favorites for the Eagles, which means the football team is only projected to score 16.5 points. That's not fantastic. Also, great spot for the Eagles. So the football team, 27th in pass defense DVOA, 30th in yards per attempt allowed. For the football team, we've got McLaurin, McKissick, and Curtis Samuel all questionable. I don't have a fantastic read on who's playing, especially like, McLaurin has a concussion. I don't know if he's going to return from the concussion, right? It doesn't seem like any of them are playing, but it's tough to really know. If you see this spread keep rising, that's probably a good indication that some of these guys are going to miss, but it's already at 9.5, which is a lot for the Eagles. So kind of thinking these guys might be out. And then for the Eagles, Hurts is questionable. It came out he did have a high ankle sprain. That's why he's been missing so much time. And then Quez Watkins has already been ruled out. For the Eagles, really only person you're considering is Devonta Smith, and he's not even a fantastic play. This is a run-first team, so even though they're projected to score 26, they're going to run it, pass it only when they have to. Now those passes will go to Devonta Smith, so that's why he's a decent play. But wide receiver 28, he's like a flex play. That's really all he is this week, even in a great matchup. They don't throw the ball all that much, and they probably won't have to, being such heavy favorites, especially if these guys end up being out. For the football team, I have McLaurin projected probably not to play, but like if he's out, obviously don't play him. If McLaurin's out, I don't want anyone. I mean, you can go to some of these backups, but it's simply not worth it. If McLaurin is out, you probably don't want anyone on the football team besides Gibson, and even Gibson's going to really struggle. Obviously, if McLaurin and McKissick are out, Gibson's going to have a lot of touches, but really, really bad spot for him. So even him is like tough to roll out there. You probably have to, but it's tough. But pass catchers, no, I'm not playing anyone if McLaurin is out. Dallas Cowboys at the New York Giants. This game has a 44.5 point total, 10.5 point road favorites for the Cowboys. That's brutal. Probably a good indication that Daniel Jones isn't playing this week. I don't know that he's been ruled out yet. I don't think he has, but he's very, very unlikely to play, in my opinion. Cowboys, a little bit of a weird split here. First in pass defense DVOA, 23rd in yards per pass attempt allowed. They just have a strong defense. Just that's the note here. I wouldn't look too much into this number on the yards per pass attempt. They have a strong defense. They're not a spot that you're looking to attack, especially as the Giants. I mean, my best Giants projected pass catcher is Sterling Shepard at the wide receiver 44. Like I have been saying for a few weeks, just fade this entire wide receiver core. I think that continues moving forward. Tony is the one I'm most interested in. I believe Tony is still out, but regardless, just avoid this entire pass catching unit. There's a decent amount of guys still. It's not a efficient passing offense, and it's not a good spot. So just don't play any of them. And then for the Cowboys, it's pretty much the same as normal. Lamb's a 1, Cooper's a 2, Gallup is kind of like a flex or a 3. Their floor and ceilings kind of go with that. Obviously, lowest floor on Gallup, a little bit higher on Cooper, highest on Lamb. and this is exactly how you're playing them. So Lamb, wide receiver 9, Cooper 18, Michael Gallup 31. I don't think there's a ton of analysis needed there. They're kind of matchup proof, but the matchup isn't really standing in your way here. Giants are a fairly neutral matchup, projected to score 27.5 total points, so the touchdown should be there. I think you're definitely playing Cooper and Lamb, and then Gallup is like, what are your options, basically. I don't think we need to go over them all too much more. Fun game between the Jets and the Dolphins. 41-point total, 9.5-point home favorite for the Dolphins, meaning Jets. Under 16 projected points scored. That's not very fun. Elijah Moore, out. Corey Davis, out. The Dolphins are more attackable through the air than like your average team, but they're not someone that is like elevating Jamison Crowder, Braxton Berrios, and Keelan Cole, right? These guys are still very mediocre. If you have to take a dart throw on Crowder, he's someone who could get there. But we saw Berrios, and we've seen him historically. He commands a good amount of targets per route run. If he's going to run routes from the slot, he's going to be out there. Crowder's probably not going to see any of his insane target game. So I'm not in love with any Jets pass catcher. And then for the Dolphins, now that we have Waddle out this week, or at least very likely out this week. Obviously, if Waddle plays, play him. But if Waddle's going to probably miss this week, and Fuller, who knows when he's returning, Parker's the pretty clear number 1. And so if you get a situation against the Jets, when your team's projected to score over 25, that's not something that's usually the case for the Dolphins, and Waddle's out, yeah, Parker's going to be a really, really good play as a wide receiver too. But again, you're going to need that to happen because I don't love Parker if Waddle is back. He jumps down much more to like a high upside flex play because it's the Jets. Everyone has upside, but not one that you'd like absolutely need to play. Cardinals at the Lions. Up next, this game, 47.5-point total, but most of those points are coming on, maybe we'll do DET instead. Most of those points are coming on the Cardinals side, right? 30 projected points for them, only 17.5 for the Lions, so still a bad spot for the Lions. Also considering the matchup. 4th in pass defense DVOA, 5th in yards per pass attempt allowed. Hawkinson out, Reynolds out. I don't think Swift's going to play. It's just a bad spot. Same as the last few weeks, though. Amon-Ra St. Brown is someone they want to develop, someone they want to give targets to. But as we've been saying, all of his routes are very, very close to the line of scrimmage. He runs basically like 5-yard outs, maybe 10 yards if he's lucky. And so he needs 10, 12 targets in order to get to 80 receiving yards, right? So not a high upside play and not a good matchup. But could you see a situation where, they're down 2 scores in the second quarter, they have to throw it pretty much every play, and then he gets there on like 7 for 60 in a score, even 7 for 60 in full PPR, it's like viable, right? So 10.4-point projection, wide receiver 29, I think that's about where you have him under St. Brown. Not a must play, but if you need him in the flex, especially in the deeper format, totally fine. For the Cardinals, Hopkins is out probably for the rest of the regular season. They still have a 30-point implied total. They're playing the Detroit Lions, an awful defense, awful team in general. I think Christian Kirk is viable in the flex as an upside play. I think A.J. Green is viable in the flex as an upside play. I think Rondale Moore is viable in the second flex spot in a deeper format as an upside play, but it would definitely be leaning towards Kirk and Green. And they have upside beyond these rankings, right? So if I'm looking at Kirk and Brown, very similar projections, but Kirk could go out there and have 102 scores. That's not something I expect to see from Amon-Ra St. Brown. So higher ceiling on these Arizona pass catchers, and that's something you can just take away from team totals, right? If I look at the team total 17.5, probably not that much upside from their pass catchers. Team total 30, well now someone could score 2 touchdowns, right? So that's kind of how you can gauge upside a little bit. Also the matchup much better against the Lions. So I like the Arizona pass catchers. I think you can use them to flex. I don't think any of them bump into wide receiver 2 territory though. Next up, Titans at the Steelers. 43-point total, so fairly low. 1 point in favor of the Titans, so it should be a very, very close and then low-scoring game, and a fairly neutral matchup for both sides. A.J. Brown still out. Ebron still out. Other than that, it's pretty much the same setup we've been seeing. Obviously, start Deontay Johnson. I think Chase Claypool continues to be a nice upside piece. We haven't really seen him hit his upside this season, but no one's going to argue the fact that he could have 2 50-yard touchdowns in a game, right? So if you need a little bit more ceiling in your lineup, I like Claypool. And then also they're projected to be trailing by a little bit, and he's one of their main pass catchers. I think he's like a quality play, a higher floor than he usually has in matchups because the Titans, despite these DVOA and yards per pass attempt numbers, they give up a lot of fantasy points to the wide receiver position in particular. So I think a really good setup here for Claypool. On the Tennessee side, it's only Julio Jones, and it's a risky play, obviously. Like, we see him, he's clearly the best wide receiver, but they're not going to throw him out there for 100% of the snaps. Again, they're playing for the playoffs. They want Henry back. They want A.J. Brown back healthy, and they want to keep Julio healthy. They're not going to feature him for 15 targets and get him injured again, like, because they're a playoff team at this point if they can keep winning. So I think that Julio is a fine play, but I don't think he has the upside that he would typically have in a setup like this, because it's a really, really good setup for him. It's just that he's a little bit more risky than you would like in this range. But again, wide receiver 35, if you're in that range, I think he's a good play. Houston Texans at the Jacksonville Jaguars. We've got a low, obviously, 39.5 point total. 5 points in favor of the Jaguars. That line's been moving ever since Urban Meyer was fired. That makes sense. He was awful. For the Jaguars, it's like a decent spot. The Texans defense isn't like putrid. It's just that like they can't score on offense, and so teams get so many possessions against them, they can score. Well, that's really good for the Jaguars because the same thing happens to them, right? So Jacksonville usually has all these 3 and outs. Their defense can't stop anyone. They allow long drives. They just never have the football. You're watching a game and you're like, when has Jacksonville had the football, right? It's hard to produce when that's the case. Well, that's probably not going to happen against the Texans, right? The Texans aren't going to be like steamrolling them on offense, and so Jaguars should have the ball a little bit more than usual. Unfortunately, there's no one we can really count on for Jacksonville. Marvin Jones is the one, then LaVisca and Laquan Treadwell, but they're all probably going to be around like 7 to 10 fantasy points, all get similar production. Hopefully one of them can score a touchdown, but even against the Texans, they're only projected to score 2, maybe 3 touchdowns. So it's not a fantastic spot for either team. If anything, it's a better like matchup for the Texans, but it's really only Brandon Cooks. I'm hoping they use Nico Collins a little bit more moving forward. Just give him a few more targets per game, use him consistently, and then maybe we can kind of bump him into like the 40s to kind of end the season. Right now, I don't trust it enough to play him outside of like a 16-team league desperation play, but keep an eye on how many targets he gets this week. But yeah, I think you're playing Brandon Cooks. I think Marvin Jones and LaVisca are fine. It's probably one of the better spots they're going to be in the rest of the season, but it's not fantastic. Also watch Brevin Jordan. If he plays in a deeper format, you could go there as a tight end. He's been getting a decent amount of targets. Again, matchup pretty decent. But obviously when I say that, I mean, it's like desperation 14 team, and then maybe even desperation in a 16 team league. Just someone to like, name to keep in the back of your mind. Panthers at Bills. Up next, 44.5 point total. 10.5 point favorites are the Bills. Brutal matchup for both teams. Both these teams, the Panthers and the Bills, have a very, very strong pass defense. 6th in pass defense DVOA for the Panthers, 1st in yards per attempt allowed, and then 2nd in both pass defense DVOA and yards per attempt allowed for the Buffalo Bills. Obviously start Diggs. DJ Moore questionable. I believe it's a hamstring injury. He hurt that late in their game last week. If he's out, it's obviously a big boost for Robbie Anderson, but not enough to make him like a smash play. Again, like I said, this is a very difficult matchup through the air for both of these teams, and we already know Carolina wants to run the ball a little bit more than usual. So I think you're playing DJ Moore if he plays, especially since White, he's out for the season, so that's their best pass defender, obviously best corner for the Bills. But it's not a great spot. So wide receiver 23, I think, is a good ranking there. And then beyond Diggs, no one gets like enough consistent volume. Now I'll say Emmanuel Sanders is doubtful. He's very unlikely to play. Josh Allen's going to play this week. Let's be honest, he's questionable, but he's going to play. I think it's a fine spot for Cole Beasley and Gabriel Davis if Diggs gets locked down, but I don't think the Panthers are going to like sell out to lock down Diggs and just leave Beasley and Davis open. So I think they're good plays, fine in 14 and 16 team leagues. If you're in a 10, 12, 8-team league, I don't think you need to go to Cole Beasley or Gabriel Davis. I don't think they're in like good enough spots this week, even with the elevated volume, because Emmanuel Sanders wasn't getting like 10 targets a game, right? So it's going to be evenly distributed. I don't think it makes either of them a must play. Maybe if he remains out and they have a better matchup, but I don't know about that this week. Next up, Atlanta Falcons at the 49ers. This game has a relatively average 46-point total, 9.5 point favorites for the 49ers, which means Falcons only projected to score just over 18 points. Good matchup also for the 49ers, both on the ground and through the air. They should be able to move the ball however they want to. And a difficult matchup for the Falcons, just also because not only ranked 6th in yards per attempt allowed, but the 49ers are so successful in offense that they can run it over and over and over and over again and take up 10 minutes, 11 minutes in one drive. If you're not seeing the field, you can't score fantasy points, right? And so 49ers do a great job at limiting their opponent's total possessions, their total plays. And so even if their defense isn't fantastic, if you have 2 fewer possessions, you need to be efficient on those looks, and the Falcons are not an efficient offense. So Russell Gage, really the only pass catcher you're looking at. Obviously, you're playing Pitts, but the only wide receiver you're looking at is Russell Gage, and he's just a fine play in the flex. He's been getting a lot of targets lately, but again, it is not a good matchup against the 49ers, especially if the 49ers get up 10 points. You know they're running it a lot. You know they're going to be efficient at moving the ball. It's not a good spot for the Falcons. For the 49ers, keep playing Deebo Samuel if he's out there. You're playing him. Brandon Ayuk getting a lot more looks now that Deebo Samuel is effectively like a hybrid wide receiver running back. Deebo's not getting that many targets. He's getting the carries, and so his yardage is there, but the receptions aren't. I think it's a really good setup for them. It's only happening because Elijah Mitchell is out. If Elijah Mitchell comes back, then they're going to shift Deebo Samuel a little bit more back towards that wide receiver role, not use him as much on as a running back. But since Mitchell kind of looks like he's going to be out again this week, we can kind of look at that similar setup. So I think Ayuk still played as a wide receiver too. When Mitchell comes back, it's going to bump Ayuk down more to a flex play. Bengals at Broncos. Up next, this game has a little bit below average, 44-point total, 3-point home favorites for Denver. The line's been moving in Denver's direction, which is very, very interesting. Fairly neutral matchup as far as both teams are concerned. And not a ton to break down here. You're playing Jamar Chase. You're playing T. Higgins. You're not playing Tyler Boyd. That's just every single week for the Bengals. Keep doing that. And then for the Broncos, you can play Jerry Jeudy. It's just a very low upside play. They want to run the football. They're not going to throw it a ton. And so he can have 6-7 receptions for 60, 70 yards, but he's not going to hit deep. He's not going to probably have a touchdown. And so he's a fine play, not a great upside play. Probably not going there in 8, 10, or 12 team leagues. Once you hit 14, 16, you're absolutely considering playing him. Packers at the Baltimore Ravens. Up next, this game has a 43.5-point total, 5.5-point road favorites for the Packers. Obviously, that's accounting for Lamar Jackson. I don't think Lamar is playing this week. I kind of thought he was going to play earlier in the week. I'm backing off that a little bit. Obviously, we're going to know, so just wait on this one. Look Saturday night, we're probably going to have some sort of indication. But he's clearly injured. The ankle's a problem. I don't know that he's going to play this week. But yeah, obviously, check that. If you see also the line start shifting to 6, 7, 8 points in favor of the Packers, you can get a good indication that Lamar is probably not going to play. No other major injury issues. Marquise Brown is questionable, but it's with an illness, and he's probably going to be good to go. Obviously, you're starting Devonta Adams. And then after that, you can play MVS. He's also questionable for this game, but that doesn't have a huge impact. If he's out, it makes Lazard a better play, but not a must play. And even MVS, honestly, it's just Adams for me. I don't think the spot's not good enough. Baltimore has a mediocre pass defense, but it's not like they're projected to score a million points, right? If they had a 30-point team total, that's when you start looking at these ancillary pass catchers. At 24.5, you're playing the running backs, you're playing Devonta Adams. You don't need to play MVS. You don't need to play Lazard. And then it's just Marquise Brown. Rashard Bateman is fine. But check the status on Sammy Watkins. I'm actually not 100% sure on him. Obviously, you want Watkins to be out for Bateman to be a better play. But also, if we're getting backup quarterback play, I know Bateman did well last week, but it is a very difficult matchup for wide receivers, in particular against the Packers. And so if we see Lamar out, I kind of only want to play Marquise Brown. I don't really want to play Bateman. I think you're chasing points a little bit if you go there. If Lamar is playing, you can bump Bateman probably into the 40s, but I don't know. I don't love it. I would probably just stick to Marquise Brown for the Baltimore Ravens. Seattle Seahawks at the Rams. We've got an average 45-point total, 4.5-point favorites in favor of the Rams. Good spot for the Rams. Seattle has a very bad pass defense. And also, we've got Henderson and Odell on the COVID list. I believe Henderson will not play this week, but honestly, I really don't know in that situation. It's going to come down to testing for that one. I know Madison is unvaccinated when we get to the Vikings game, so he's going to be out. I'm not 100% sure on Henderson. But Odell obviously is going to need to test negative and have no symptoms for him to be able to play. I'm going to assume that Odell is out for this, but if he plays, play him. He's been getting a lot more targets recently. He's been like looking really good. If Odell's active, you are playing him. Cooper Kupp, regardless, is the wide receiver 1. He is an absolute stud. If Odell's out, play Van Jefferson as a wide receiver 2. If Odell is active, you can still play Van Jefferson. It's just much more of a flex play. Someone you're probably not going to in 8 and 10 team leagues. In 12 team leagues, I think he's fine to flex. And I think you're definitely playing him in 14 and 16 team leagues. And then we've got this COVID situation for the Seahawks. So Lockett right now is going to miss the game. And if that happens, you're obviously jamming in DK Metcalf. He'll have a very high target share, a very high touchdown potential. But check that one, because again, we don't know if these guys are going to end up coming back. If Lockett is activated, I think you continue playing Lockett and Metcalf, even though the results from Metcalf haven't been fantastic. But both them bump down to more like low-end 2s, because it's still a difficult matchup against the Rams. But again, if Lockett is out, even in a difficult matchup where the Rams are probably going to focus on DK Metcalf, you have to play DK Metcalf as like the only wide receiver from Russell Wilson. We will jump into the Saints at the Bucks. 46.5 point total, 11-point home favorites for the Bucks, 17.75 projected points for the Saints, 28.75 for the Bucks. Difficult spot for both teams. Both these teams have like a strong pass defense, so the numbers look more neutral, but these are like quality defenses. Problem for the Saints is that like Traquan's the 1 and Marquez Callaway's the 2, and both of them just don't see enough looks to be trusted. So I'm not going anywhere from the Saints, especially in the fantasy playoffs. And for the Bucks, it's the same as always. AB's still suspended, so you're going to Godwin and Evans and no one else. Godwin, Evans, Gronk, Fournette. Must starts on that team when AB is out. There's no analysis needed. It does not matter what team they're playing against. You're starting Gronk, you're starting Fournette, you're starting Godwin and Evans. I don't care who they're playing. Final game of the week, Monday Night Football, Vikings at the Bears. This one has a 44-point total. 5.5-point favorites are the 5.5-point road favorites are the Vikings. Difficult spot for the Vikings. Second pass defense DVOA, 8th in yards per pass attempt allowed. However, we don't know if Thielen's going to play. It was a high ankle sprain, so I think he's still going to be out. In which case, you play Justin Jefferson, obviously. You're playing him regardless, but like he's an absolute monster if Thielen's going to be out this week, especially if Madison's going to continue being out. And then Osborne would be fine in the flex. I think people are getting a little too excited about Osborne. Played a ton of snaps, had a decent target share, but he hits on the long touchdown, right? Like if he doesn't have that like 60-yard touchdown, he didn't have that great of a day last week. I think this is a good projection, like wide receiver 32, that's the kind of range. And not one that I think has like a ton of upside. Not someone you're just jamming into lineup. So a fine play, but a flex, not in 8-team leagues, not in 10-team leagues. You can start considering it in 12-team leagues, and then definitely in 14 and 16-team leagues. And then if Thielen were back, you're not playing Osborne. Just obviously understand that. For the Bears, Allen Robinson placed on the COVID list, so if he is going to be out, that's obviously a bump to Darnell Mooney. He'll go back to being heavily featured in this passing attack. And it's a decent matchup. Vikings don't have that strong of a pass defense, and while they only have 19.25 projected points, they're going to be trailing. And so if they fall behind, especially early, we've seen Fields now start opening up a little bit more. He looks more comfortable. He's scrambling more. He's throwing deep a little bit. Last week also he got a little bit unlucky with like the punt return touchdown. We have 2 long touchdowns from non-Mooney players, so the targets weren't there. I think that reverses this week. I don't think they're going to have a long punt return touchdown, but if Allen Robinson's out, I think we go back to Mooney having like a ton of targets, and so wide receiver 26 with a decent amount of upside in that spot. And I do have to move Allen Robinson. I haven't declared him out yet. Obviously, again, that's a good ending to this. We need to know with these players that they're ruled out, because don't assume anymore that once someone's placed on the COVID list, they have to stay there for the rest of the week, right? That's not necessarily the case anymore. And so pay attention on Saturday night, Sunday morning, see who's active, see who's inactive, and make sure you're playing the right players. And again, you can check thefantasyfootballadvice.com. Just look at the rankings. All of them are free for every scoring format, and just see how they're adjusting on Saturday night, on Sunday morning, and you can even look today as well. So that'll do it for this one. Hope you all enjoy. If you did, how about hitting the like button, and how about subscribing to the channel if you're new here? Thanks for watching.